television production and production of television music. When we talk about music, we ought to know some background, some history and its evolution through which music has gone and what forms do we have today and through which changes they have gone through that we have them in the present shape or modern music form. So if we dwell upon the idea of a basic introduction to music, we can simply assume from common life and for common experience that music is basically a common sense that exists in most human beings. Like we have a taste for food, we have a liking for some colors, and so on and so forth. Similarly, in music, we have our own tastes. Some people enjoy different type of music, others like other forms of music or other type of music, depending on their culture and their background, and of course their vision towards music. Music is basically an abstract art, and its function is primarily to impart aesthetic pleasure, or we may say to convey human feelings through music. And furthermore, we have to justify whether music is just entertainment or it is more than that. Musicologists and musicians of excellence are of the view that music is basically an aesthetic experience, and its purpose, you can say, is to provide mental equilibrium and balance to the human mind. The aspect of rhythm is something different that juvenates in human body, and its expressions are in different forms. But basically, music is an artistic auditory communication form. Evolution of music is through a natural process which is concealed or dormant in nature. We are not very clear, or we have not been able to conclude authentically how the evolution of music goes on. But studying from history and studying the basic human psychology and the needs and requirements and expressions of human beings in different ages, we can divide this period from the primitive period, that is the prehistoric, the Vedic period, the classical period, the medieval period, and the modern period. From the start, when human being was looking for a better life, he was casting away his animality. He thought that to give sound to his emotions, expression to his emotions through various sounds. And unfortunately, as other arts had a model in nature to follow, they developed from there. But music had no model in nature which it could follow or which it could imitate. So what the human mind thought was that the rhythm is inbuilt in the human body, and that is to the beat, the heartbeat. So from there, and the other thing that he had was his own voice. So as a combination of both these, the rhythm and the human voice, he started producing various sounds to express himself differently. Then he thought that if he changes his pitch, if he speaks from a higher pitch or shouts, that makes him stand out from other people around him. So that also helped him in develop the pitch or the octave, ultimately what we have today. And this aspect of music that he developed was beating the drum and using two notes to express his feelings or to convey certain messages or to remember something or to give satisfaction to his beliefs, whatever beliefs he had in those particular time periods. So the two-note theory and the rhythm, from a single man to a group singing, and then it formally developed, and the number of notes developed from 2 to 3, 4, and then ultimately 7. What musicologists think is that first what the human voice developed was a note that they call udatta, or the higher. Then the other note that the human voice could produce was the anudat, that means the lower portion. So once the higher portion and the lower portion of the sounds or the pitch were formed, there had to be an intermediary note that had to balance the higher and the lower notes. And that was called savitra, survita. Survita was a note that was placed in between the octave that we call the pancham today. From pancham to sa, it is udat, and from sa to ma, it is anudat. And this is how the octave formed its 7 notes. 3 in the start, 3 in the end, and 1 in the middle. So this is how the octave was formed. Music, as critics explain, Herbert Reed, the famous art critic, he said, music is an art form which can be defined in one word, and that is balance. The whole thing in art, whether it is visual art or audio, balance plays an important and a primary role in its development as of an aesthetic form. In architecture, you have seen that balance has been created through various forms, through various shapes. And similarly, music has its own balance. The notes that we use are to be balanced with other notes. And this process of balancing notes is the ultimate culmination of aesthetics of music. Music as a whole appeals to the body, the feet, the heart, and the head. Rhythm is primary in music, so the rhythm affects the body initially, and the person starts moving his feet to the beat of a particular song or a musical item. Now, then it appeals to the heart. That is the emotional content, the emotional aspect of music. Highly emotional music may appeal more, and less emotional music may not have the same response. But it certainly affects your heart, and ultimately, from the heart, it goes to your head, that is the brain. And going from the heart to the brain is an intellectual process. So what music does is it affects you physically, emotionally, and intellectually. And the combination of these 3 experiences is called the spiritual experience in music. Now, the other thing that is the appreciation of music is listening to good music and repeatedly listening to good music. As we have discussed earlier, that what is good music? Who will say that this is good music and this is not good music? But nature has given certain standards to the human mind as far as aesthetics is concerned. And if we use those natural standards provided by the nature, every person has a certain aesthetic level according to his surroundings, according to his mental abilities, and according to his training. The factors of memory and association play an important role in the recognition of music. As we know that recognition is the first step towards appreciation of music. Unless we recognize music, we are not able to appreciate. By appreciation, I mean here is a developed form of a listening format which is above the common man's ear. And recognition can only be attained if we are able to differentiate, identify the tune, the melody. The rhythm is not so important in factor in the recognition aspect, but melody is the main factor through which recognition is attained.